And I would also say that they were successful in weakening this link, because after a particular time, these leaders became ineffective. They told us that we were not able to, because there were people from outside who came and who, influenced children of that area and youngsters of that area. And immediately after the riots, because we have gone there immediately after the riots, also we saw how again these leaders were playing a constructive role. They started talking to, youngsters. They started ensuring that there was the police and the young, hot-blooded young people do not clash, and they played a very constructive role. We also spoke to some other people in the area. In fact, it is so tragic that all the people from the Muslim community that we spoke to in that area, they were absolutely, I would say they were deadened by the events. And some of the data we have put in the book, some of the data we have not put in the book, because of research ethics, and because even these leaders and these community members, influencers, they told us that it's a very difficult situation for them also, that the kind of disruption that has occurred and the kind of because many of these people have been staying there for something like 5 decades. They have very deep roots there. And whenever both communities have had any issues, they told us there are always issues. If there are 10 people living together, if 10 utensils in the kitchen, they will clash at some point of time. But how they sorted out these issues over the past 5 decades, how they built relationships with each other, prominent Muslims, prominent Hindus, how they build relationships with each other, that got disrupted. And some of the data we have not been able to, actually put in the book, because research ethics says that we should protect our, sources. So, and this is something. This is a very, very dangerous trend, because once this safety valve of leaders, of old established, elderly persons is lost, then then I don't know how communities will ever either stabilize internally and also have stable relations with other communities. A very, very, very tragic, very a trend that I hope does not repeat itself.
That's really disturbing to hear, in fact. So, in your opinion, what is I mean, which is the breeding place of urban Naxalism as far as India is concerned and even as far as the world is concerned? And who do you think is behind all this? And what do you think would be their ultimate motive?
See, all these things are, even the term, there is a huge controversy over this term urban Naxalism. And I would like to make it very clear on this platform that we have not coined this term, neither has any, I would say it's not been coined by any film director or by any movie, or it is not, this is a term which is rooted in the literature, which is been published in the it's there in the public domain by the organizations which are characterized as by the Maoist organizations, and we have mentioned it in our book. It's the links are there, and this document is very much available on the public platform. It is called the Strategy and Tactics of the Indian Revolution. And then there is another related document, which is called the Work in Urban Areas. So both these documents are Maoist documents, which were officially, released for the public in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. This was 2004. And I think that is the source of the idea of urban Naxalism. Very clearly tells us that they are people following a Naxal ideology, working in urban areas, and their whole networks and everything is laid out in these documents. So they do not operate as I mean, there are a number of loose organizations. These networks are not clearly visible, but these networks they run through a number of universities. They run through almost, we have, it's in fact, it's not we, it's they who have told us that it runs through it runs through the legal profession, it runs through universities, it runs through organizations which are cultural organizations, it runs through a number of a number of sections, groups in society. For instance, there will be urban Naxal or Naxal organization working with, you can say, farmers, working with labor, working with women, working with the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So they have this kind of entire, network, and they are there. Anybody who wants to know how they operate or they work, these two documents are enough to explain to you how the entire dynamic works. So that should answer your question about where are they located, where do they originate, and in the world over, I cannot comment on, say, such similar networks in the USA or similar networks in the UK. One will have to look for is documentary evidence, and one will have to look if these are there are certain ideologies which fall in the category of grand theories, and communism and its variants, Maoism and Naxalism, they fall within the category of it's a grand theory. Marxism is a grand theory. So their theories would be replicated all over the world. You will be able to see these things happening, similar organizations all over the world. You just have to look at relevant documents, and you have to look at in the right places, and you will be able to find what their strategies are, what their programs are, what their aims are, what their plans are. We have just given it in one chapter, but these are pretty comprehensive documents for anybody who's interested in internal security should read them.
So in fact, this I would connect with the riots which happened in Chicago way back in 60s and 70s, when President Nixon was there and he was vehemently opposed for the Vietnamese War. So there was a lot of criticism on him, and what happened in Chicago was far more uglier than what we are seeing now. What happened in Delhi a year. Here comes the golden question. I wonder if you'd be comfortable answering this. So we have a protest of similar scale happening in Delhi now. I mean, or I would say on the borders of Delhi, rather. So every time we hear that some talks are going on with the government, but again, like, there isn't a common ground the protesters are finding with the government. But as I was reading through your book in the current times, I was wondering. So, in fact, it is mentioned about the strategy of Maoists, like attack in the east and protest in the west, kind of. So, is there a similar? Okay, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. So, is there a similar scenario like Delhi Riots 2020, which is repeating now?
See, this is a very valid and an important question, but I would be very careful in drawing hasty parallels, or there are some very, very significant points of difference between what is happening now and what we saw on ground during Delhi Riots 2020. Let me put across those differences to you. And see, one of the major distinctions is that the protests against the Citizenship Amendment Act, in fact, the Citizenship Amendment Act as a policy, it had nothing to do with the people who were out on the streets to protest.
Yes.
It was not, they were not the target group of that amendment. And even if, yeah, you know, it's very often said that, okay, well, it started with the Citizenship Amendment Act, but then there are a number of other things, the NRC, the NPR, and stuff like that. But then again, even the NRC was not something. You see, you did witness protests in Assam, but those protests were witnessed for a very different reason. They were witnessed for a very different reason. Now, that different reason was that in Assam, the people from Assam, they do not want anybody, any community, Hindu or Muslim outsiders, to settle in their area. Okay. So to say that, you know, to conflate the NRC with the CA was also a wrong thing. It was clearly the affected, targeted group was not out on the roads. They were this. The situation was created out here with the three farm acts. The farmers are out on the roads, and whether you say that they are a section of farmers or whatever, you know, so but still they are farmers and they are directly impacted by the bill. Whether you believe whether you believe these are good acts or bad acts, that's a different thing. I'm only talking about the target group. So that is one point of difference. The second point of difference was that during the Delhi riots, there were no clearly identifiable leaders. You know, it was in a sense a